India's Prime Minister is in China for the first time in 7 years as he attends a regional economic and security forum. Narendra Modi and China's President Xi Jinping met ahead of the opening of the Shanghai Cooperation Organisation in Tianjin. At least 19 other leaders are attending the talks, including Russia, Turkey, North Korea and Pakistan. During their meeting, Modi told Xi that New Delhi was committed to improving ties with Beijing. The bilateral talks come just days after the US imposed 50% tariffs on Indian goods. Well, Modi's attendance signals a thawing of relations between India and China after over a years-long border standoff.
The interests of 2.8 billion people of both countries are linked to our cooperation. This will also pave the way for the welfare of all of humanity. We are committed to taking forward our ties on the basis of mutual trust, dignity and sensitivity.
And Sandra Petersman is DW's Bureau Chief in New Delhi. Sandra, what's the response been in India to this Modi-Xi meeting?
Of course, it is seen in a positive light, the meeting per se, but then if you go to the comment section, Jared, there is also a lot of China skepticism because, in fact, a lot of people doubt here if China can really be a trustworthy partner going forward. There are a lot of disputes between the two countries, and the most fundamental one, of course, is the disputed border region in the Himalayas, as well as China's very close ties with India's arch-rival Pakistan. And so if I go to the Indian readout of the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and China's President Xi, there is a clear message for the home front saying that how much Prime Minister Modi stressed the fact that continued tranquility at the border regions in the Himalayas is essential for going forward in terms of developing the relationships between the two nations.
And given what you've just said, how much of a reset is this for India-China ties?
I wouldn't call it a fundamental reset, Jared, but definitely the continuation of defreezing these relations between India and China. They hit rock bottom after bloody clashes in 2020. It was really a deep frozen state, but then things began to ease up a little last year when the two leaders met at the BRICS summit in Russia's Kazan. And from there on, diplomatic relations became more regular. Practical steps like the resumption of flights and the reissuing of visas of travelers in between the two countries became practical again. So not a complete reset, but definitely a thawing of ties that also has to be seen in light of President Trump's tariff war that is hitting friends and foes alike, with India being one of the main targets.
Yeah, let's talk a bit more about that. As you say, this meeting comes just days after India was hit by these steep US tariffs. What impact has this had?
I mean, if we count days, it is just 5 days that the US has slapped this massive 50% tariffs of most of India's exported goods to the United States. And in doing so, it has used a rather humiliating language whenever talking about India. For instance, it declared Putin's war against Ukraine Modi's war, which didn't go down well at all here in India. And China jumped at the occasion, calling the United States a bully. But it is crucial to keep in mind here, Jared, that India sees no benefit in a Chinese-led Global South alliance. In fact, it is still deeply skeptical of China, of China's intention, and India would rather like to see a multipolar world order where it has a safe space by practicing the balancing of multiple strategic partnerships.
Yeah, let's add Russia to that, Sandra, because Modi is going to meet Putin bilaterally tomorrow. How does Russia fit into India's strategy?
Well, India has been seeing Russia for decades now as a trusted all-weather partner, so to say. It sees no contradiction in being friends with a country like Russia, or also Iran for that matter, and the United States. India definitely wants to keep a check on Russia's deepening ties with China, which it perceives as a threat, because India is heavily dependent on Russia when it comes to satisfying its energy needs and also in terms of defense procurement. So what India is trying here also at the Shanghai Cooperation Summit is a delicate balancing act. India knows it needs the United States as its most important global partner. It needs China in a way because it is its most important and largest neighbor, and it also needs Russia. So balancing all of that, that is the priority of India here, and it is a delicate balancing act, Jared.
We've been speaking with Sandra Petersman, DW's Bureau Chief in New Delhi. Sandra, thank you so much.
To discuss this further, I'm joined by DW's Rick Lauert in Taipei. We've just heard from Modi there. What else do we know, Rick, about how that meeting went?
So a lot of good vibes coming out of that meeting. Yeah, some good vibes there from Modi and also from Chinese President Xi Jinping. According to Chinese state media, he described the two countries as the world's two great Eastern civilizations. He said that they should be partners, not rivals. And he also used the metaphor of an elephant and a dragon dancing together. This, of course, a very different tone from two countries that are traditionally rivals and just 5 years ago had that big falling out over those deadly border clashes. So this meeting shows a very rapid thawing of ties. We know that the meeting ran over time because they were talking about so much. And there's already mentions of concrete agreements on things like resuming direct flights between the two countries and making it easier for tourists to get visas.
What about the timing of this meeting? Just as India is hit by steep tariffs from the U.S., seems to provide a real opportunity for China.
Yeah, so those 50% tariffs on Indian goods from Washington has been a big blow to India and has really soured US-India ties. But it gives Beijing an opening, of course, to present itself as a bigger partner to India as India looks to hedge its bets economically. And some would also say that Xi is seizing this opportunity to show how Trump's tariffs diplomacy can backfire. India was often seen by the West as a counterweight to Beijing, but it now seems that Trump's actions have pushed these two countries closer together.
There are some real major players on the world stage here, of course. As far as you know, what other key meetings might be taking place at this summit?
Well, Xi has already had quite a busy day with his bilateral talks. He's been meeting with leaders of Iran, Pakistan and Myanmar. He's also meeting with the president of Turkey, and he also met with the UN Secretary General earlier. He rolled out the red carpet for Putin earlier today, and there should be bilateral talks between Putin and Xi, which everyone will be watching on Tuesday, talks about energy deals and, of course, the war in Ukraine. Later on in the week, Xi is hosting a massive military parade to mark the end of World War II, and one of his guests of honor will be Kim Jong-un of North Korea. This is, of course, also very consequential, the first time that Kim has attended an international event like this since he took leadership of North Korea.
Talk to us a little bit about what Xi's overall aim is here.
Well, on the summit's agenda is stuff like, regional security, trade, energy, and the digital economy. But we're expecting some sort of joint statement or declaration from the member countries, the people attending. But we don't really expect any big deals or agreements to be signed. This is really all about the optics for President Xi. It's about global South solidarity and showing that he can gather all of these world leaders together and position himself as the head of a new bloc, which is an alternative to the West, just as the US leadership looks to falter in that. And of course, having Modi on side, the leader of the world's largest democracy, adds a great amount of legitimacy to Xi's new club.
DW's Rick Lauert in Taipei. Many thanks, Rick.